One of the most fundamental principles in Chassidus is to live and to see and to notice how everything is hashgacha pratis. Every person, if he looks into his life, if he pays attention, he could see with his own eyes, Gili Alakos B'Muchish, things that happen to him just in the right time. There's no other explanation that this comes from Hashem. I saw in Chassidus a big, interesting chiddush that in the middle of davening, a person should be mizboinen in his own hashgacha pratisin that happened to him. You don't have to go thinking about the tzva shamayim. A person, everyone that's here today in this room, has stories in his own life where it's open hashgacha pratis, how he sees how the Eibishter is leading him. There's a pasuk in Zadin Shulchan Aruch, Kol Masecha Yil L'Shem Shemayim, and then it says the lashon B'chol Drachecha Do'ehu. Chassidus translates B'chol Drachecha. In everything that you do, look and find how this is divine providence. It's an amazing thing. We don't have to look up, read books. We have our own stories in our own lives. Things that happen that later on you see how this had to happen and it was just perfect and how things come together. This is open hashgacha pratis. This is called Elikus B'Muchish. I'll give you just an example that just happened to me just a few days ago. An amazing story. I have a friend, a lay person, who I have a shaykhus with, and he calls me up, I think 2 days before Yom Kippur. And he tells me that he has a very dear friend who, Rahman al-Islam, the doctors found in his spine a terrible thing, and he has to be operated no less than on Yom Kippur, because it's every moment counts. It was maybe 3 days before Yom Kippur, and if I would be so kind to call him up, this guy who was so sick. I don't know him from a hole in the wall. I called him up and I told him that 100% he's going to be well and there's nothing to worry. But I said, you have a pair of tefillin. He said for 10 years already he doesn't have tefillin. I said, you gotta buy tefillin and start wearing the tefillin till Yom Kippur. And also I talked to him about mezuzahs, He right away got the tefillin, right away put it on. I called up after Yom Kippur. He tells me, this is a live story. He told me, I promised him he's going to be well, which I don't know where I could promise him this. But I said, for sure you're going to be well. So he told me after Yom Kippur that the doctors said 3 things. Number 1, he could become totally paralyzed from this operation. He was 7 hours under the knife of a very sensitive, there's only one doctor in America that does this. And they told him the first possibility is that he's going to be totally paralyzed. The second possibility that he's going to die on the spot. And there's a remote possibility that he'll survive. But Poil Mamish, they found that it wasn't malignant, and he's 100% well. And this is on Mamish Hashgacha Pratiyus that I got this call. And he had to put on the tefillin, and he's going to put on tefillin for the rest of his life. This is a Meshugadik Mamish, a person who was so sick, and he made a commitment to put on tefillin, got mezuzahs, and the operation is and no malignant. This is just one out of trillion stories. Hasidus teaches us everything you see, everything you hear is Hashgacha Pratiyus. But you have to pay attention. Make every moment, whatever you see, make note and do something about it. You hear about something, you got to do something. You are the one who heard this. There's a reason you heard it. There's a reason you got to do something. This is what Hasidus teaches us. B'chol drachecha da'ehu. In everything in life, you have to see Hashem and learn from it and act upon it. Nothing is a coincidence. Coincidence is a pikarsish word. There's no such a thing as a coincidence. There's a Moiradik story that everybody knows, but it's a very deep story. I don't know which Rebbe, if there was the Mittel Rebbe. The Mittel Rebbe, I think, correct me if you know differently. You seem like you know some stories. There was a Rebbe who had Yechidus a whole night. In the middle of Yechidus, the Rebbe stopped Yechidus. No one understood what's going on. There's such a line, and he suddenly stopped Yechidus. And the Rebbe took a Tillim and said Tillim and crying like there was. And after a long, long time later, he said he'll continue Yechidus. After the next day, the children of the Rebbe wanted to know from the father what happened in the middle of Yechidus. He stopped and he said Tillim, and then he started Yechidus back. And the Rebbe answered, this is an amazing story. So the Rebbe answered, I'm not sure if it's the Mittel Rebbe or not. The Mittel Rebbe said the following. Somebody came in to my office and told me about some serious. Hello? Somebody came in and he confessed to me something, a very, not such a nice thing that he committed. And he asked me for a ticket, I should give him away to do tshuva. But the Mittel Rebbe said, I think the Mittel Rebbe, he said, before I give a way of tshuva to somebody else, I have to first see how I have the same problem and correct it in myself. And then I can answer somebody else. Now you know who you're talking about. You're talking about a tzaddik we can't imagine. But he knows from the Baal Shem Tov that when you hear something negative about somebody else, it's a sign that I got the same problem and I got to do something about it. So the Mittler Rebbe, who's the guy did something really not so and the Mittler Rebbe finds that he has to find that he has the same problem in a smaller way, of course, and then has to correct it. Then I can answer somebody else. But this time, he says, I couldn't find in any shape or form how I have any association with this. So that must mean that I'm fooling myself. You hear? This is the most powerful part of the story. If I can't find it in myself, it must mean that I'm fooling myself. Because it has to be. Baal Shem Tov said it's a mirror. It means I got it. If I can't find it, then I am fooling myself. So I begged Hashem, open up my eyes to see how I have that same problem. Of course, in 1% of it. Then I had to do tshuva for it. And then I can answer. This is the most amazing story. That a tzaddik, we can't imagine what kind of tzaddik. Yet, if I hear about somebody else's problem, why do I know about this problem? It must mean that I got this problem, and I got to do something about it. And if I can't find the problem, then I'm fooling myself. Isn't this an amazing story? So getting back to the ranch, we have to live with Hashgacha Pratiyus. We have to pay attention to everything that we come in contact, everything we hear, everything we see. We have to see it's a message. There's no such a thing as stamazai. Everything is a message, and I got to act upon it. Life is very, very perfect. The Eibishter is running the world, and it's a perfect world. And every little thing is important. The Baal Shem Tov teaches that everything that happens with anything affects everything else. A kangaroo in Australia and a chipmunk in Muncie, there's a connection there. Nothing is isolated. Everything is connected. It's a whole different kind of a life. Then life is very exciting, very meaningful. Whatever I see is a message. Can you imagine? That's how we're supposed to live. That's what the Baal Shem Tov teaches. There's a story, maybe you heard the story. Baal Shem Tov was walking one winter day, and he was walking with his Talmidim. What happened to your son? Already he left? Before even he sat down? What a shame. He doesn't have Sitzfleisch, huh? So the Baal Shem Tov was in a winter day, like in a Buffalo day, was icicles on the roof, and the icicles formed a cross. So the Talmidim asked the Baal Shem Tov, you say everything is by divine providence, the Eibishter made it. What's this all about? The Baal Shem Tov said, very simple. A Yid has to be on fire. He has to be warm. But if he freezes up, the end could end up a cross. That's the message Hashem showed him. You hear a story? Isn't that a beautiful story? There's another story, pretty heavy story. The Baal Shem Tov was sitting in shul in a winter day, and a non-Jewish man had his wagon stuck in the ice, in the snow, and he bangs on the window of the shul where the Baal Shem Tov is sitting, and the guy, the coachman, is asking, hey, anybody can help me and get my horse and buggy out of the ice? So the Talmidim said, we can't. So he shouted in Ukrainish, I don't speak so well, he said, Moshish Danuchochish. You can, you just don't want. So the Baal Shem Tov said, that wasn't the accident, the story. This guy is telling you a message. Never say you can't. You just gotta want. You heard that story once before? It's a powerful story. So supposedly this guy he just meant you guys, you're lazy. But the Baal Shem Tov said this message, you had to hear this. This wasn't random, this is a perfect, you had to hear it. This is a message. Don't say you can't. If you want, you can do it. It's a very interesting way of living, that everything is a message. Hello? Imagine the Rebbe Rashab was once sitting at a Shabbos table and he put a fork into the fish. He was about to eat a piece of fish. And the fish fell off the fork. So the Rebbe Rashab said, he's not ready yet. There's no such thing as a coincidence, it fell off. It fell off because the nitzutz, the godly spark that's in that piece of fish, is not ready yet to be elevated. Isn't this unbelievable? Hello? Everything is a lesson. There's no such a thing as a coincidence. Anyways, I hope somebody is going to take over or something, because it's getting past my bedtime here. Everybody should have a freiliche Yontif. In the Dekes, the Farbrengen soll abkommen, bepoil Mamish, in Avoide bepoil. Finish this. Half test. You are going to half test.
And the entirely Benu Zion for those who want the answer.
The Pastor alone is enough. Unbelievable, huh? I imagine a mullah Hasidim, just for that Shiloh alone, they were davening for 20 years. They don't have to go any further. As per Shiloh, as the nicht mit der Nemes, how could it be? It's a close to love. You know, what will we say? Bissel, the nicht mit der Nemes, that is not love. We could learn the mind, or we could sing weiter. Ba 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 ba. Schön Shiloh. Und der Emesis mit der Saarschneider. We're so full of baloney that we can't even think empty. We're not bothered by this child. The Rabbi doesn't understand that. The Rabbi's answer, Emes Lamito, ich weiß, aber nicht Emes. Das ist glaublich. Huh?
The hippopotamus.